Hey everyone, and welcome to Dexerto's The Jungle preview show presented by DJ Esports, the world's premier all-crypto esports betting site providing real-time odds. Worlds is kicking things off here with the play-in stage. Different this year again because the VCS, the Vietnamese Professional League representatives, are unable to attend due to the pandemic and some visa issues. So they shifted up the format here. It's 2 groups of 5. Top team from each group will move on through. The second team will be like the top seed, and 3 and 4 play each other. The winner of that plays the opposite 2 and 3. And we got ourselves some very interesting groups. Yeah, that was the best way to do it, right? It's not the easiest way to do it. You're first, you're in. You're second, you're probably in, right? That's the way to I think about it for these play-in teams. But we've got Group A and Group B here. Group A, that was the stacked one. Thank you, Jankos, for the greatest group draw in the history of group draws. You got Hanwha Life, you got LNG Esports, Infinity Esports, Peace, and Red Canids. In Group B, you've got Beyond Gaming, Cloud9, Detonation FocusMe, Galatasaray Esports, and Unicorns of Love that have been there in the world stage for so many different times. Dom, I toss it to you. It's not quite as hype necessarily as the main stage, but it is Worlds. Where does your focus go to?
When I see these groups, the first thing that I look at is Cloud9, because they have this tendency to drop random best of ones, right? We saw them lose to the Japanese team. We've been talking about the Crabber meme for how fucking long now? It's literally been 6 months of us being like, Blaber's going for the scuttle crab again. Like, he's about to end the whole fucking game. Like, that came from a match versus Detonation FocusMe, which they lost off that play. So when you're in a situation like this, you know that one bad best of 3, suddenly you might not make it out, right? Because if they lose to Detonation FocusMe, let's say Detonation FocusMe both lose, and Cloud9 both lose to Beyond Gaming, C9 loses to Detonation FocusMe, and then those two, Cloud9 and Detonation FocusMe, beat Galatasaray, which, you know, the Turkish team, and Unicorns of Love, which would be generally expected. Suddenly, you have a situation where Cloud9 is going to have to play a best of 5 against potentially LNG or Hanwha Life to even make it to group stage. So there's a real possibility that Cloud9 doesn't actually make it out.
Yeah, to describe it, like, if you're in 3rd or 4th position, you put yourself in a bracket of best of 5s where you have to play one best of 5, and your second best of 5 is going to be against the second best team from the other group. So Cloud9, if you're a Cloud9 fan, or whatever team you like, in Group B, in fact, you really just don't want them to get 3rd or 4th place, because that sets up the potential Hanwha/LNG best of 5 for the last remaining spot in the group stage. And that could very well spell disaster. You would have to assume it spells disaster unless we've seen a pretty big level up from Cloud9 over the course of this boot camp, which is possible.
Yeah, it's possible, and it's the same roster that they've had since MSI.
Right. And here's the thing, and here's why I think I'm a little bit more bullish on Cloud9, because the thing about the League of Legends schedule is that when you go through the entire year and you go to MSI, you have very few opportunities to actually fix problems that arise in your team, because you're going from spring split, spring playoffs, winning, to MSI, to coming back, taking 1 week off, and then going straight into summer split, summer playoffs. So you actually have 0 time to fix any systemic problems. And what have Cloud9's biggest problems been? Probably mid-jungle synergy, right? That's something that takes time to actually fix, and they're kind of throwing in the late early game, I would say. And not to say that they fixed it, but at least they've had the time to maybe fix it, which hasn't been true previously. Now, the downside of this is that from my conversations with pro players, mid-jungle synergy in the new meta is probably the most important thing. So simultaneously, they've had the time to fix the weakness, but also that weakness seems like it's really critical in this current meta. So there's reasons both to have faith and also be very down on Cloud9 simultaneously, is what I'm saying.
I've got one more take here, which is it's actually better for Cloud9 to just get it over with. Get 3rd seed on purpose, play against the 2nd seed from the other bracket, because let's say LNG win, right? And Hanwha Life is that 2nd seed team in Group A. Then Cloud9, assuming they beat the third and fourth, they're able to beat the fourth seed in their own group, which I would fucking hope that they can beat the fourth seed wildcard region in a best of 5. If they don't, you know what? At least you get out of here early. But you play then against Hanwha Life. If you beat Hanwha Life, then you're not necessarily seeded into that group of death, Group A. Now you only have a 50% chance of being seeded into the group of death, Group A, because you could then potentially go into Group C as well. That would be pretty
the long
five-head.
game.
Yeah, you play the long con because, look, you have a better chance of beating Hanwha Life than you do of beating FPX and Dom1. So you might as well just take the risk, intentionally get third, try to knock out the second seed, and then throw yourself into the gauntlet.
I like it.
If they get third, who makes it through on the other side of Group B? Is it Detonation, FocusMe, Unicorns of Love? I don't think we give Galatasaray
I think Group B is like shockingly competitive, and I will say this: like you open by talking about how this is play-ins. We're not, it's not maybe not as exciting as the world's main event. That's true. That's objectively true. But this is, for me at least, this is probably the most exciting play-ins have ever been at Worlds. So I am more excited this time around. Possibly because I'm a sadist and I think that it's just going to be hilarious what happens in Group B. But there are some legit teams. There are some like pretty legit teams in Group B, especially when you consider Cloud9's performance in the summer split. Because the weird thing about the way that these teams were seeded is that, yes, in Group A, I think everyone would agree that it's LNG and then Hanwha as the top 2 teams in play-ins in that order, right? But the problem is that probably the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th best teams are all in Group B, and then the 8th through 10th teams are probably in Group A. Like, I think that's pretty fair to say. So if you think about it that way, when only the bottom team is knocked out, in some ways it's actually easier to get a top 2 slot in Group B. Because if you thought Cloud9 was in Group A, well, then you'd be like, oh, well, they get 3rd, 4th, and they might have to play the second seed in the other group, right? But there are ways to get out of this group in first place or in second place that make it kind of easy because you avoid the top 2 teams and you would have to play either no opponent because you're in first place or potentially a weaker opponent out of Group A. So I think like the real challenge is that it's a single round robin best of 1, and so anything can happen. But, I can't say their name. Galatasaray crushed their region. Detonation, FocusMe crushed their region. Now, do we know how good these teams are internationally? No, but we can expect that Detonation, FocusMe is going to be better than they were at MSI because they actually have their full roster. At MSI, they were competing with their coach as a support. Like, they literally beat Cloud9 with their coach as a support. So now they have their real roster.
I just want to just send out a PSA here. As a community, can we just agree to not learn Galatasaray's name until they actually get out of play-ins? Like, can't we just call them the Turkish team until they get out of play-ins? Like, what is the point of learning their name? Like, Riot doesn't even support the play-in stage. They even said publicly they don't care about this fucking fiesta, and then they expect us to come on shows and know their name. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I just want to just make a plea. They're the Turkish team. When they get out, they're Galatasaray.
I disagree. Only because we were forced to say Fenerbahce 1907 or what it was every single time in the whole name because that's what the owner wanted to say. Galatasaray isn't that bad, so Turkish fans, I got you.
I'm banning Turkish words from esports names. That's what I'm doing.
All right, that's a tougher bridge, Monte. I don't know if you want to be crossing that one. All right.
All right, well, that is our play-in examination.
No, I'm not done. So Group B...
Oh, he's not done.
I'm not done. Group B, I think, also, if you look at some of the other teams, like, did Unicorns of Love like, flop magnificently at MSI? Yes, they did. They didn't get out of a group with a team that doesn't even have a tournament with the Australian team, right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty embarrassing, but they also made a roster change at AD Carry. I think that was a uniquely poor performance and could have been due to kind of jitters at an international event. And I think the thing about Detonation, FocusMe, and Unicorns of Love is that they're returning in the same year to an international event in the same location. I think they're going to be way more comfortable than they were previously at MSI.
Well, yeah, and then obviously the other thing is that they actually have their AD carry this time. So,
yes.
The fact that they actually have somebody that joined their team and they've been playing with for like their summer split, I feel like that's a pretty big advantage when you come to one of these tournaments.
Yeah, so I think
I guess I'm just worried because they fluffed their lines at MSI. Like, I know that, your AD carry wasn't necessarily there, but you had 4 other players that have been to Worlds. It's the same core roster where they faltered and fumbled. That's where my concern comes from for this squad, because their upside should be high. Their upside should be there. And yes, maybe they learned from those failures of the past, but it's still, when you talk about that group with Beyond, with Cloud9, with Detonation, FocusMe, and they have their roster and found success with a substitute in a tougher group, that's what worries me about Unicorns of Love.
Sure, I think those concerns are valid, but this is also a reality where they only have to win 1 or 2 games in order to ruin someone else's tournament. Like, the margin for error is extremely, extremely low, especially in Group B. So, like, I feel like anything can happen in this group. Cloud9 could go out in last place. That is a very real possibility. I don't think it's a likely possibility, but I think it definitely could happen. Like, you only need one upset, really, for that to occur.
Damn. Well, so this is what I would say. Unicorns of Love at MSI, they had to deal with the monster that is Pabu in the jungle, the star of OPL, or LCO, I guess is what they call it these days. And I'm just excited to see how Pabu
the anti-star of Twitter.
Yeah, no, exactly, the anti-star Twitter. But I don't know, man. I just want to see how he plays in Group A. I can't wait to see this new version of Pabu's team. Oh wait, never mind. It's a different team.
It is.
It's Peace. Oh wait, he didn't make it. Jesus. Well, that's unfortunate. I mean, I just assumed that he'd be able to win that region, but I'm lucky, I guess.
Yes. Very, very unlucky for him. Pabu, rest in peace. You will not be at Worlds this year.
I just can't wait to see what he's tweeting at me. Since he's not at Worlds, he's gonna have more time to write these essays where you read the whole thing and like part of my brain literally fell out of my head. I was like, what?
Yeah.
What am I reading, man? Like,
I actually can't tell if he's a really, really good troll or just an idiot.
I can tell. I'm not going to say which one it is, but I can tell very easily which one it is.
Well, speaking of Australian representation here, the representative is Peace. They popped off there in the summer split off the backs of 2 former LCS Academy players, Babip and of Taliwaka, formerly of Golden Guardians, or I guess it was TSM Academy and Golden Guardians, respectively.
I love Peace how you know all of like the tier 2 players. And, like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, I know these guys, but that's because I spent some time in OCE, right? So the same guys that have been like at the top of the ladder were at the top of the ladder back when I played in 2017. And the thing about Tally that's so interesting is, number one, he was like a top laner for a long time, and the way that he played was funny. He's like the most overall skilled player of OC, I would say, because he would play AD carry in solo queue. He'd get rank 1 playing AD carry. Then he'd play top lane, and he was one of those top laners. He's kind of like in that Voyboy Broken Blade tier where he just wants to play every single champion in the game top. He wants to have a counter pick to everything, play all styles, all picks, whatever. And then now he changed to mid, and he's been kind of like able to bring those strengths to the mid lane role. And I think that actually suits the mid lane role way better than any other role, because right now in the meta, I mean, it's wide open with picks, right? Like, so you're gonna have like 80 mids that are playable. You have Yone that just got buffed. Then you have, if you watch like Doinb play, you have like all the Galio, TF, Ryze, the roaming trifecta. Then you have the mages like the Orianna, the Zir, like that are both playable. So you have this variety of picks that are available in this role. And I feel like for a player like Tally, that's the best thing possible, because he'll generally be able to find something that he can stick to and something that works.
Do you want to do a quick meta check? Because like we can talk about some of the stuff, because there's going to be some weird, if you haven't been watching Dom streams or like casual streams of like the tracking the pros, or been checking out the pro tracking websites yourself, you're going to be mighty surprised, I think, when it comes to Worlds, especially some of the flex picks, some of the stuff coming out of the jungle, especially. So since the show is called The Jungle, I guess we should probably just talk about jungle meta picks right now, because like it's Lee Sin and Jin Zhao, like you're going to see those, but then there's a bunch of like Goredrinker, AD Assassin, Zed, Talon, Kiana is a flex pick in mid. Then you've got the buffed Lilia coming back, Talia also. So there may be some niche, and you're not going to see these all the time. By the way, you're going people have been playing Rek'Sai. Like I've been talking to some of the pro players, and Rek'Sai is now coming back in as a kind of classic Lee Sin counter as well. Like people, will we see it? I don't know, but like people are at least experimenting with that because of the, the old interaction that's always been there. Where it's like you can disrupt a second Q proc if you like pop out of the ground at the right time. So there's like a lot. Dom, have you seen anything super interesting, or is that most of the meta so far?
That's most of the meta. I would say that there's like picks that seem way more reasonable in a pro game than what we've been seeing in solo queue. So like in solo queue, we see a lot of Zed and a lot of Talon. And I feel like this is kind of just junglers wanting to play those champions since they are viable and they do have fast clear. The problem with both of those is they don't offer anything outside of just pure damage and assassination potential in a team fight. And maybe they are so broken and people are able to play those champions super well to the point where it doesn't matter that they can only provide damage. They'll be able to get their damage off in a fight because of their mastery on the champions. Generally speaking, I've been watching a lot of these pros play these champions, and it's just not familiar to junglers. So, like, if we had somebody who is a really fucking good Zed player that made, like, a lot of waves on that champion. So somebody, for example, that comes into my mind is Selfmade. Selfmade, when he's auto-filled, he plays a lot of Zed mid. He's just somebody that has those Zed mechanics that not everyone has. If there was a player like that, I could see them potentially pulling it out. But generally speaking, I think the Kiana is going to be like the one of those AD Goredrinker junglers that is going to be the most played because it just provides the most in terms of it has
and is a flex.
CC. Yeah, it's a flex. I don't think it'll be flex though, unless he's like very specific matchups are picked. Kiana generally has too bad of a lane phase, and the reason why you'd want it in the jungle is because you can dodge the lane phase by just doing that, and then what better role to roam with than the jungle role? So I think that Kiana, just the amount of CC it provides, the amount of team fight shaping that it can do is something that puts it a tier above the other assassins. So I think that's going to be really popular. That being said, though, like I think it's all going to be up to what Lee Sin's presence is actually in these games, because I hope that Lee Sin is permabanned. I think a lot of the time it's going to be good for red side to just ban Lee Sin 1, 2, 3. But if Lee Sin goes through, now you come into like an issue where you don't want to pick any of those AD assassins. Now you have to match it with something like a bruiser, or you want to play something that's potentially tanky, because Lee Sin just destroys these stealth AD assassins.
So I've got one for you that kind of popped up as well. I know that you feel pretty strong about Goredrinker as just one of the mythic items that's just a go-to for a lot of it.
Yeah,
why is that? Why? Who's using it, and why is that, and where should we expect to see it?
I mean, you're going to see it everywhere, number one, but yeah, it's everywhere, number one. But the biggest issue that I have with Goredrinker is that it's anti-thematic, right? Like if you're playing AD assassins, you want to be building AD assassin items. You have a whole class of items. The choice for AD assassins should be, am I going Prowler's Claw? Am I going Eclipse? Am I going Duskblade? That should be your choice. There shouldn't be these choices of, but Goredrinker is actually like a free insane heal, and it does pretty decent damage, and it helps with my like jungle clearing because of the proc. And then you end up going Goredrinker, and then you go AD items, and now you're just like this unkillable, annoying like bruiser thing with stealth, which just doesn't make sense in the context of League of Legends. Like the item rework was a complete failure, and it's super obvious because if you watch any patch, there is never actually the decision between multiple items. It's always, this item is broken, I'm going it. Oh, Stridebreaker is good now. They buffed Stridebreaker, gave it an insane dash. Oh, now we just built Stridebreaker on all the Goredrinker champions. Oh, they nerfed Stridebreaker, now we're back to Goredrinker on all those champions. Oh, we're playing AD Assassins, Goredrinker again. It's just not, it's not the goal of the entire rework of items. The whole rework of items was supposed to be to increase variety within your picks and allow you to pick a mythic item that suited the game specifically, and we just haven't seen that.
I also think it's problematic when Goredrinker goes on to champs with high mobility, because if you have a champion that can go over walls very easily, like a Talon or a Zed, the thing is you can just piece out of a fight, wait for the active to come back up, and then like go proc your active again. Whereas if you have a champ like Olaf, I feel like there's more counterplay, because once you're in, you're kind of just like in, and you can get focused down. I mean, it's hard with Sterix. I think the Sterix like Goredrinker combination is still really probably overpowered. But the point is like, because of the relatively low cooldown on the item, the fact that you can kind of do your initial damage, maybe assassinate somebody, maybe just deal a bunch of damage, then get peace out of the fight over a wall, stand around while the fight goes on, wait for another flank ankle, come back in, and then proc it again. To me, that's like the huge issue too, is that it shouldn't really be encouraged on high mobility assassins because it creates additional problems in kind of play patterns and lack of counterability.
Yeah, and the mythic passive on it is ability haste, and then you have your proc, which is ability haste, and then a lot of these champions want ability haste as well, so then you end up like 6-second Goredrinker procs in fights. It's a fucking mess, man.
Yeah.
The other one that I saw that was popping up on Twitter, I don't know if this is real or not, this Tryndamere. Tryndamere was starting to come into play here a little bit. Was it Tryndamere mid?
It's top as well. People have been flexing it.
Yep.
Why is that? What is just Goredrinker's broken and so Tryndamere's able to play it at a lot of pressure there?
I mean, for me, I'm not exactly sure if Goredrinker's the best build path. It seems like in pro games, people really like it for the ability to just be super annoying. And the thing about Goredrinker is it gives you like this team fighting ability where you can pseudo frontline for your team by playing with your Goredrinker, and then it delays the amount of time that it takes for you to have to ulti into a fight, and then once you ulti, you have another Goredrinker proc up, so you kind of just live forever. We've been seeing a couple different builds that are kind of interesting. One of them that I want to bring up is Showmaker's Hullbreaker build, because we haven't been seeing Hullbreaker in competitive games pretty much since it came out. I think Fudge bought it once in a playoff game. I think it was game 2 versus 100 Thieves, and it was actually a really good buy, and they should have won the game off of it, but then Closer got a couple insane kicks and the whole series went to shit. But this is actually a really interesting combo because what he does is he builds Goredrinker and Hullbreaker, so he's not like full split push or full team fight. He has the ability to do both, and essentially it just looks really annoying to play against. So I think that Tryndamere mid will be used as a counter to the champions that just can't push it out of lane, that don't have the damage to just push it out of lane. I think that could be an interesting angle because a lot of the picks that people are starting to go towards now, like we saw Galio popping up a lot in LPL, and I think that when you put it on paper, Tryndamere is a good counter to that strategy. Galio wants to roam all the time, but can't ever stop Tryndamere from pushing the lane, and then suddenly you just end up with this massive Tryndamere in the side lane that no one can kill and just runs you around the map the entire time and puts so much pressure on you and forces you to go for those engages.
I also think that the meta game, so if we're looking at the way the meta's been moving over the last 6 months, so the buffs to Tower Gold at Tier 2 encouraged a lot more. So in playoffs, we actually saw most regions around the world taking faster first Heralds and slower first Drakes, and I think we're going to see that trend continue at Worlds, just because the Herald has become more powerful as teams realize that they can apply pressure to Tier 2 turrets and get more gold out of them these days. So I don't think we're going to move to a full split push meta, right? Like, I think the Hullbreaker is strong. But the thing is that what was already happening in playoffs is it wasn't really split push. It was more, okay, we're going to switch to mid lane champions that are capable of diving effectively very early on, and then applying the pressure to Tier 2s, taking the Tier 2, right? And then going and team fighting after that. So I wouldn't say it was like a full split push commit, but I think teams are going to be more willing to dabble in full Hullbreaker split pushes, especially with Tryndamere, because he can team fight effectively as well. And I think that, you know, his ability to kind of shove out and roam and use his ult to dive turrets and get those advantages and open up paths for early Heralds is probably going to be pretty important because teams realize that they could snowball really effectively like that. And especially in Korea, the first Herald timing went down by a pretty significant amount. So I can tell the Korean teams and the LPL teams too also are prioritizing that objective more early on. Is that what you saw in the LPL playoffs as well, Dom?
I mean, I feel like teams prioritize Herald pretty highly like the whole time in LPL. I would say that the one thing that stood out for me is there was a lot more like Herald fights, which I don't even think were good a lot of the time. Like, people were so focused on Herald that they were unwilling to like keep their AD bot and like take plates and turrets like that. What I've noticed is that second Herald became a lot more useful to teams because having a second Herald and placing it and getting a Tier 2 top is 600 gold on your top laner. That can really snowball the game. And we saw games like there's one that I remember where RNG was playing with Xiaohu on Kennen, and he had 3 items at 21 minutes, like 3 full completed items and boots at 21 minutes. So technically a 4-item build that early into the game. They still ended up losing the game because they threw that series against LNG, but that to me was just like unprecedented levels of advantages that we haven't been able to see because you used to not be able to get that much gold in top lane.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see how this plays out and if this is going to be a continuing trend. Like, I feel like it sort of started it for regions and summer playoffs with like more focus on top laners, more focus on split pushing or at least diving to help your top laner. And then I feel like now we're getting champions that are, you know, mid or top flexes to Tryndamere, that can build Hullbreaker and will be pushing some level of split push strat. And then I'm curious if that's going to evolve into maybe some other picks down the line as well.
Well, only time will tell, as Worlds is right around the corner. Hey everyone, this is just a reminder that The Jungle is presented by DJ Esports. You can earn up to 8,000 Tether in the free-to-enter DJ Esports Worlds Prediction Series. Sign up with the link in the description and get yourself 400 DJ tokens for free. Limited time only, terms and conditions apply. All right, everyone. Next up, we've got ourselves a segment that we like to call Sadist Outcomes. It's one where maybe the world gets a little topsy-turvy, and these are the outcomes that we love to hate to see, hate to love to see. Yeah,
no, I just love to see them. See, it depends. see, dGon, it just depends on how much of a sadist you are, how much you love to see them, right?
I don't want to see Cloud9 fail. I want to see us get through, man. All right, Monty, since you're raring to go, let's have you go first. What is your sadist outcome for the play-in stage?
You know, I think there are a lot you could do with Cloud9 that could be funny, but if I had to rig the brackets in a specific way to get an outcome that I would want in my most sadistic moment, I think I would actually try and get Unicorns of Love into the second seed in Group B and then have Peace Esports at third or fourth spot and then have Unicorns of Love and Peace Esports play each other for that world spot so that we could have the rematch of Australia versus Russia at MSI, and then have Australia win and make it into the group stage. Because, like, I actually really love a lot of the Australian narratives that are going on right now. Like, there's more, like, aren't there, like, more Australian players? I think there are more Australian players at Worlds than NA players, just from the NA teams, right? Just from the NA teams themselves.
Just from the NA
so that's
teams,
fun.
yeah.
Oh,
and then, like, I also like the fact that that at MSI, they were able to, like, get top 2 and make it out, even though they don't have a tournament anymore. So I'm loving like the scrappy Australian narrative.
Wait, that can't
where they
be
just,
right.
Like, keep winning.
There's no way, right? Because wait, so who is there? There's Fudge and FBI. That's it, right? From Australia, and then we have
but it's
Blaber
Vulcan.
Blaber Vulcan.
Yep.
And Tactical. We got one more.
Okay.
We got one more.
You got one
We're still
more. One
beating
more.
out
NA.
SC.
That's true. That's true.
God
Okay.
bless.
But yeah, it's FBI. You're absolutely right. It's FBI and Fudge. So it's 2-3. It's close. It's close.
They haven't taken over yet. I'm defending
Not
NA
yet.
as a proud former LCS player.
But
Sorry, Tommy boy.
there are still more Australian players at Worlds if you include the Australian team.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, that's rough. That's tough.
NA, the emerging region.
That's why my sadistic take is like Australia somehow gets third or fourth, comes in, beats Unicorn of Love, who gets second in Group B in a best of 5, unlikely makes it into the main event at Worlds, and we have an Australian roster, in which case it will be 100% true that there are more Australians in the main event than NA players.
Yeah. I mean, here's my sadistic outcome. So you get onto the play-in stage. They're introing all the teams. They intro the first 5 teams in Group A, the first 5 teams in Group B, right? And then you see, like, through the shadows, a 6th team emerge from each region, and it's just the 2 VCS teams that are completely, like, forgotten. They're actually on the stage. Levi rips off his shirt. We haven't seen this guy in 2 years. He's been hitting the gym. He's just jacked as fuck. He just comes out and just beats NA's ass, takes what's his, and just ends up making it to group stage, gets into that Group A, and then they go 0-6. That's my sadistic take.
I am really sad the VCS teams aren't here. Like, the fact that we didn't get to see them last year either is just a bummer, because they were showing so much promise, and then they just get denied the chance to actually compete on the international stage for forever. So I'm actually pissed we don't get to see that, because this could have been the year of VCS. Like, what if a VCS team gets out of groups in the main event?
I mean, VCS always looked exciting, right? Like they were always the team that came
especially the best
through
of ones. They were fucking crazy.
Exactly. So it's really sad for that region because it just feels like everything's against them, right? Like they start doing better. They become like a team that actually they had a seed in the main event, right? They had their first seed was auto qualified, didn't even have to play in play-ins, and now they're just not able to compete for 2 years. And whenever you have that lack of competition, their league didn't even run in summer. It just hurts overall, and it just makes your region just have to go back to square one.
I will say, though, the player base in Vietnam is massive, which is why they got the major region moniker and got that play-in, or that not play-in spot, the group stage spot. So hopefully they'll be able to bounce back. The bummer for this year specifically is that Levi's in form. The teams felt pretty in form, and they just weren't able to get over through the legal proceedings of visas. So huge bummer for them. For me, the sadistic outcome is literally putting Cloud9. I know, Dom, you said give it to us, put Cloud9 in third place and beat the Church of Chovy or take on Tarzan in the jungle and get it over with and win to earn your spot. For me, it's the opposite. I do not want that. And if it's done by the hands, yet again, of Detonation FocusMe, I don't know how mentally that team recovers from that. Maybe they'll be able to recover for the play-in stage and put their best foot forward, but I could see it, the final game with the way the schedule breaks out, the final game going down between Detonation FocusMe and Cloud9, they get bumped from the second place to the third place slot, and then they have to play cross bracket. That to me is a more realistic sadist outcome because it feels like it's too possible because it's happened before.
Look, part of me wants Cloud9 to win because if Cloud9 randomly gets loses a couple best of ones, gets third place in the group, and has to play Hanwha, and they beat Hanwha Life. Like the thing about Hanwha Life is I desperately want Chovy jailbroken out of that team, and I feel like any wins that Hanwha Life gets just encourages Chovy to stay there. I really don't want that to happen. So part of the sadist in me wants Hanwha to just completely crash and burn at this point in time because I need Chovy out of this roster. I can't. They're not good. They're not a good team. I can't keep watching this bullshit. And have him in skill prison this entire time. He's wasting. You don't
like Morgan? You don't want Morgan up there anymore?
No, I don't like fucking Morgan.
What about Willer? What about Johan?
I don't even really like Deft anymore.
Jesus, that's sad. Yeah.
Oh no!
Come on, Deft had an alright gauntlet. He came back.
Deft did play well in the gauntlet. That's true, but the rest of his team was still very suspect.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know how to rate this team, right? Because they were pretty much shit during all of LCK. Every single game that I watched, it was just depressing, right? And then it was to the point where, people were making fun of the Chovy Rizel in the early part of LCK because it just looked like he stopped giving a fuck at a point, which it wasn't really just him stopping giving a fuck. It's just desperation from being on such a bad team. Trying to just make shit happen when you're the only good player. Eventually, you're just going to do something that just looks fucking stupid and everyone's going to make fun of you. Yeah, you have to do that. So I don't even blame Chovy for any of that. But, I mean, let's be honest. Going into the gauntlet, who actually thought they were going to make it out of the gauntlet? People saw Nongshim was at the top, Lift Sandbox was at the top of LCK. You'd expect one of those teams to get their shit together and beat Hanwha Life because Hanwha Life had just been losing to everyone. So Hanwha Life even being here is a massive surprise. And of course, if you just look at gauntlet, they looked significantly better than, they're definitely the fourth seed from Korea if they play like that. There's no other team you'd want to have sent here, but it's only really for Chovy. It's only because you want to see Chovy at international competition. It's not because you want to see any of the rest of them.
I mean, look, I got what I want, which is just Chovy going crazy in play-ins, hopefully, and then just getting dunked out of the main event when he actually has real competition that, he can't just hard carry his game. But I was hoping we would see this just because I want to see him 1v9 games.
Chovy versus Tarzan? That's a narrative right there.
Yeah, exactly. If only they had stayed together. What a different world this would have been if Viper and Tarzan and Chovy had actually just remained as one unit.
Yeah, no, I had
CV Max, damn.
I had a great comment on one of my videos because I was talking about some of the top players in the world, and in my top 5, I believe I had Viper, Chovy, and I had Tarzan, which is 3 out of the 5 Griffin members. Still, 2021, they're in my top 5 players in the world. And people were like, damn, just looking at this list makes me miss Griffin. And then somebody responded to that person and said, Well, if you want to see the whole Griffin experience, you can watch Morgan do what Sword used to do
Sword
to Chovy.
Doran.
Yeah, you get to see Sword. You get to see Sword again with Chovy at 2021 Worlds. God bless.
I like how they had, Sword and Doran, and just both of them were just terrible.
Well, Doran was better for sure, I thought.
Yeah, but I don't know if I don't
shots.
think they would have done much better with Doran in that Worlds in 2019. But yeah, what could have been?
Right.
What could have been?
Well, as we think about what was past, those were some of our sadist outcomes for this year's play-in groups. So we talked about some of those crazy outcomes that we might see, but that's only because we have a new segment called Worrying Trends that are leading us to have some hesitation about how things are going to go for Worlds for some specific teams and some specific players based off of some of the tracking and cracking the pros. So Dom, take it away. What are some worrying trends you've been seeing as we get closer to World Stage proper?
I was only going to do one, but I'm going to do two. There's two worrying trends, Jat would have agreed with me because essentially Master Tier is the old D2. When Balls was stuck in D2, might have got a pentakill, but everyone remembers how much of a worrying trend his solo queue stats were. So I'm going to pick my boy Perkz, obviously one of my favorite players of all time. But it's a little bit of a worrying trend here. So far, he is in Master 251 LP, 62 wins, 55 losses, and he has a 53% win rate in EUS solo queue, which right now there's like 7,000 master players. Not that high of a rating. The other one I want to go to is another mid laner. Maybe we have some mid lane issues in LCS. Who knows? But the other person I want to go to is Jensen, who is also in Master Tier, 219 LP, 82 wins, 73 losses, 52.9% win rate. That for me is a worrying trend.
He's 0.1% worse than Perkz.
Yep. Just like in official matches. Perfect.
Well played. Yeah, those are both a little bit. Those feel bad. I mean, there are some other ones here. Like those feel bad because they're pretty large sample sizes, right? At this point in time, when you're like got over 100 games, you start to become a little bit concerned. I mean, if you're looking at smaller sample sizes, we could go to Beryl, who's 5-8 in Plat 1. that maybe got some unlucky games in there, maybe got trolled a little bit, but to be in Plat 1 and 5-8, I mean, I'm not a huge Beryl fan, I have to say.
Yep.
I'm a
no one is.
In fact, a giant Beryl hater.
Who is?
Yeah, I mean, shit. Like, look, all I was gonna say, Monty, is you want a worrying trend for Beryl? Let's take all of fucking MSI. That was a little bit of a worrying trend.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that was a decent sample size of games too. More than 13 games there. So who knows?
And you know what boggles my mind is they never got in summer. They never got like a secondary support player or AD carry. They were just like swapping Showmaker and Showmaker and Canyon around instead. Mm-hmm. I would at least like fill out my bench and just maybe try that as an alternative
he knows
approach.
Something.
Yeah,
it has to be.
So I mean, another one that people have been talking about is Teddy. Although he's been doing a little bit better. He's at a 60% win rate in Masters right now, 42 and 28. A player that I'm somewhat concerned about is Arya from Detonation FocusMe, who has traditionally been a very highly ranked player on the Korean ladder. It is a Korean player who plays on a Japanese team, and I think had some bad moments, but played overall pretty well at MSI. He's Diamond 2, 13 and 10 right now, so that makes me a little bit nervous. Yeah,
to jump in on your Teddy point, all that it took for Teddy to start actually winning games is to just quit playing AD carry in solo queue. In his last 15 games, he has Aurelia, Lee Sin, Kiana, Jace, 2 Lucian games, lost both of them. Then he had a Lucian game that he won, and then Jarvan, Yasuo, LeBlanc, Silas, Aurelia, Syndra, Ryze. He just quit the AD carry role, and now he's actually winning.
Yeah, Aurelia, he's 11 and 5 on it. Yasuo, he's 5 and 1. So you're right. Just switching it up has made the big difference, it seems.
Well, the biggest difference actually comes from hopefully this picture that you guys could see here. In chat, he basically said, "I'm cold in Iceland. My skin is so dry." And so people are saying, "Come to London, you won't be cold here." So maybe
you'll be
maybe
moist. You'll be moist in London.
Yeah.
I will say that in general, like Koreans are very sensitive to their conditions at various different places, and cannot travel well sometimes. So if you change their environment, like Koreans are very aware of that, which is why every time that a Korean team will go to an international event, they will literally bring crates and crates of their own snacks, like ramen, food, everything like that, so that they have like the smallest amount of disruption to their diets and their kind of living conditions as possible. Like I remember first time I saw this was at 2013 Worlds with SKT, and I just remember showing up at the hotel and like Piglet sitting in the lobby of this hotel in LA on like 15 boxes of instant ramen. I was like, how are you guys even going to eat anywhere close to this much instant ramen? But they were traveling with just all of this shit. And I think especially for Korean players, look, Iceland has 300,000 people. I'm not sure there is a Korean restaurant in Iceland, but every event that I've gone to with Korean players, they will find the Korean restaurant and just order takeout from there nonstop, in order to like feel comfortable. So I don't know how they're going to get Korean food in Iceland. I don't know if they did it last time either, but it has been it is very important to Korean players that they have, especially the food, but also like the conditions. So I understand what Teddy's saying.
It's Reykjavik, right? It's in Reykjavik.
Yeah. Let's Google Reykjavik. Did you do it?
So no. I've been to Reykjavik before. Iceland is a
restaurant.
Beautiful country.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing many Asian styled restaurants. A lot of Icelandic food is very you have to add the salt and the pepper, and it was very bland. And so like when you added what your amount of salt and pepper, I guess what I'm used to as an American, it made it taste better. But a lot of it is bland. So if they're looking for very specific Korean type food, that might be a huge issue.
Yeah, Did
you find anything?
I'm looking right now. This is like an Icelandic restaurant. It says Asian, but it looks like they have like Icelandic shark and minke whale.
Yeah, shark is a huge delicacy in Iceland.
Yeah.
I had some there. So they just eat it like it's chips.
I see a couple Chinese restaurants, but again, this entire country has like 300,000 people in it. So I see a couple of like Chinese restaurants or like Asian-ish restaurants, but I don't see any Korean food. So I don't know what they're doing is the answer. I'd actually love to know. I might dig into some of my Korean contacts and ask like how they're solving this problem, because now I'm really curious. I will do some research and come back next show with information about what the Korean players are eating, because I know you're all dying to know.
There it is. An exclusive here in the jungle.
So yeah, this is all to say that I understand Teddy's issue, but also Teddy, like, get it together. Lotion and humidifiers exist. So do something about your situation. I know the pro player way is just to sit in a dark room and complain until someone changes it for you, but take some initiative.
Yep. That's how it works. No, when you were talking about this, I just kept on thinking about like my experience, because I obviously lived with two Korean players for a year where I competed with Piglet and Phoenix. But you mentioned Piglet already, so I don't know if it was a Piglet specific thing, because a lot of the like Korean players that I talked to were way more willing to like try other types of food. But Piglet and Phoenix, it was literally like we eat Korean food, or we could like settle for Japanese food. That's it. There was no like, hey, you want to go to Chipotle? It was, no, we are never going to Chipotle. Like, never eating your disgusting, filthy American food. Like,
yeah, it's easy to pull that off in LA because there's 1
Mike's.
million Korean restaurants, and it's, LA is basically just an extension of Seoul. Like, honestly, if you go to downtown LA and you, or like K-Town LA, and you go to a bar, I would literally not know I was not in Seoul, because the inside of these bars is identical to what you would see in Korea, and the experience is identical. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, those were some of our worrying trends getting into Worlds. Next up is...
Worrying trend is the lack of Korean food for Korean players. Will it...
It's a worrying trend.
That's where they get their superpowers from. Are they being robbed of their potential, of their strength? That's my question.
I mean, the worrying trend for them is like, are any of the Korean players going to default and join an LPL team mid-tournament? Like, do we just see Chovy just swap, join LNG, and then you just have the super team come out? Like, how far is the poaching going to go?
Don't worry, Dom. He'll be on an LPL team in a month. I'm not, how long do you have to wait? He will be going, I promise you.
I really hope so. I think that Chovy would really succeed in LPL, and I think that it's just a better formula for success. I mean, we've seen it done though. Like, we saw Viper, we saw Tarzan. Like, that's Griffin players. Like, if you're a good player, you can succeed in the LPL.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like they put good players around you, which is not what happens in Korea now. So,
yep.
You just left to solo carry your team unless you're Dom1.
Exactly. Or your T1, I guess.
All right, next up we have the segment for you all at home. Some of you put out your spiciest takes. Some of you put your heart on your sleeve, and then some people decide to comment on it. So then we're going to comment on the person commenting on it. This is Brain Dead Takes. All right, we'll start off first with one that got the fire boiling under El Dominico. This one came from your conversation about your top 25 there, Dom. A lot of people were talking about Khan being better than Nuguri because Nuguri had a much worse split, one would say, than his spring split. A lot of the games were being won through Doinb or being cost by Nuguri, and so they're like, well, Khan's better. What do you have to say about that take?
Well, I would say that Khan gets to play against LCK top laners, which are notoriously weak right now. I mean, you look at the teams that are coming in. Yeah, you have Morgan. Like, Kana's okay. He's not great. He's not as good. Like, I would much rather play against somebody like Kana than somebody like Bin and the people that actually Nuguri has to play into in LPL. When you just look at like the top laners, think about the fact that these three top laners aren't going to Worlds this year from LPL. You have Bin, you have 369, and you have Zoom. Zoom didn't even make playoffs. Like, this is like the quality of LPL top laners. So you're tested. Breathe didn't make it either. Breathe is insane. There's so many good LPL top laners that have like the mechanics to actually punish you in lane. But let's just do like a quick little thought experiment here, right? Who was FPX's top laner last year? Oh, it was Khan. Khan was so bad he was getting benched for Gimgoon. Suddenly, Dom1 looked unstoppable with Nuguri, and then when they changed to Khan, oh no, now they're just like, they look a lot weaker. We don't know what it is. It's the fact that their bot lane is running it down, but it's also the fact that they have Khan and not Nuguri top lane, right?
See, the thing about building a team is that if you have multiple carries, then if your bot lane's running it down, then maybe you could just shift your focus somewhere else to alleviate that pressure instead of having it just ruin your team.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that this is just one where people just see, they're like, oh, but look, Khan's like always doing fine in his games, and then they see Nuguri sometimes running it down. But one thing I will say is Nuguri, outside of his lane phase, like, he does have that 0-2 power spike, but he was famous for that last year in LCK. It wasn't like a new thing. He would always randomly die in lane, and then he would just end up being a monster throughout the game. And Nuguri still has that quality where he can have random deaths in lane and still be super impactful throughout the entire game. He's still a great player, even though he's had like some bad games, but his level of competition is a lot higher in LPL. So I would just say that in general, Nuguri is a significantly better player than Khan. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in these best of ones, but for me, like, I think that is one of the most brain dead takes that I've seen, is people just saying that Khan is up here and Nuguri doesn't deserve to be even discussed as a top 25 player at Worlds.
Well, and as you're saying too, I think there's a real conversation about whether top lane is the overall weakest position at this Worlds, given the number of players that you mentioned that are just not participating in Worlds, that didn't actually make it. And what's weird is top lane is probably going to be a very important role, probably more important than AD carry, I would say, at this event. There's an opportunity here for Nuguri to really pop off, and also for Khan to maybe look a little bit better. But I think also when we talk about Khan, the people really have a lot of recency bias with Khan, where they'll point to the playoffs where he actually did play pretty well, or they'll point to late in the season. And that's true, but like, we can't just forget that he played 24 games of Sion in spring and 14 games of Gnar and basically didn't play anything else, right? He was a one trick. He like didn't do great overall at MSI. And so I guess maybe he has a weaker field of competition amongst top laners at this particular event. But like I do think it's a pretty significant downgrade if you were to watch Damwon last year versus Damwon this year, and likewise looking at FPX last year versus FPX this year, you see that Nuguri makes a huge difference. And anyone who thinks that Khan is in the same realm as him, I think is very mistaken.
So that's one of the first ones that we had. The second one that I had seen kind of pop up here was about LCS fans. So there was a Reddit video that went around that was like, here's a hype video for LCS. I'm so excited, even though we suck. And so that was like, all right, that kind of sucks that you got to temper your expectations. It's fine. But then on Twitter, people were like, I don't think we have to temper our expectation as LCS fans. We could still be excited. I don't know if that one is necessarily the take in how people should be portraying their excitement. You know, tempering it based off of former expectations, I think, is fine. How do you feel about this? I can be excited about LCS even though we suck. True or not true?
Monty, go for this one.
I can't control people's emotions. You know what I mean? like if you want to be excited about it, then fine. I guess I think that they don't know what they're talking about, right? I think they're using the word excitement to mean, I believe that they have a chance to win. You can be excited to watch a team that you know has a very low chance to win and still be fine with that and have a rewarding emotional experience. If you are deluded, then yeah, maybe you will get your hopes up and get them crushed. But here's the thing, guys. No one is forcing you to be an LCS fan. That's a choice that you're fucking making. You have access to the grand buffet of League of Legends globally. You can watch it for free anytime you want, any region. All the casts are in English if you speak English. I assume you do because you're watching this show. So it's like there is no barrier to entry for you to like good League of Legends, right? And so you are sitting down at this buffet where there's like prime rib, right? And lobster and everything like that. And you are going to the boxed mac and cheese and being like, this is what I want to eat. And you can I love boxed mac and cheese, okay? You can enjoy it, but you are not allowed to pretend that boxed mac and cheese is as good as prime rib. That's illegal. You can't do that. So if you are an idiot and you look at this buffet and you're like, I just want to eat boxed mac and cheese all day, I might have some questions for you. But that's a choice you're making. So my advice is go to a different part of the buffet. Start eating some of the really nice, high-end, masterfully created food. And, you know, maybe you could still have some boxed mac and cheese, have a bite here and there. It's your guilty pleasure. But you have this choice that you're making. So if you're making that choice, you're kind of an idiot, or maybe you just have no culinary adventure in you. Or you have no standards. Maybe you have no standards. But these are all the choices you're making by being an LCS fan. So I don't have sympathy for you when you can literally go at any point in time to actually watch good LoL and get excited about it. What are you doing?
I mean, for me, I'm okay with people being excited, and I don't feel like people need to like temper their expectations. But realistically, if you're just watching like these shows and stuff like that, like, we're going to be honest with what we see based on the league that we watch. There's no way you can watch as much. Like, I don't care if you have zero game knowledge. I don't care if you've never been a pro player, if you've never even played League before. If you watched as much LPL as I have this year, and then you watched as much LCS as I had this year, you would obviously tell the difference. Doesn't matter, like, what level
fans,
you're at.
I just want you to know, you made Dom eat all that boxed mac and cheese. He didn't want to, but he did it. Because you fucking love mac and cheese.
They paid me to eat the boxed mac and cheese.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it was. They paid me to eat boxed mac and cheese, and I was like, you know what, man, fuck it. Like, my diet was just mukbanging mac and cheese. So, I mean, I just think that it's really strange because at the same time, people want you to be honest, but then if your honesty is like negative towards LCS, then they'll be like, shame on you, you piece of shit. You played in LCS. And it's like, I don't know what people want. Like, if you come to shows that are supposed to be analytical about LCS, you're probably not going to be happy. Those are not the shows for you. You can go watch Hotline League where they never say anything over the course of 2 hours. Like, it's all good.
Well, my fellow...
No, Dom. What they do is they get the fans to say things for them and then collect the money. That's what they do.
There it is.
By the way, if you are interested in getting hyped up about LCS teams and just like taking a deep drag off of that copium, there's a Twitter account I got for you. It's at Captain Flowers. He will provide for you all of the NA LCS excitement and hype that you need. And just only follow that account and don't watch anything else. Stop coming and watching this show.
Jesus.
All right. Well, my boxed mac and cheese eaters, we will persevere on with the prime rib, Monty, and I guess the filet mignon.
There you go.
Dom.
We got the surf and turf
the
in the jungle here.
Look, I can vibe with the LCS fans because I'm a fucking Dolphins fan. All right.
Oh
the
my
thing
God.
is, I know my place. I'm not going to the NFL Reddit making posts about how the Dolphins are going to be fucking good. I take my shame. I watch the Bills go 35-0 over them. Quarterback takes a hit. He's injured. Like I see that shit, and you know what? I just like it's like a guilty pleasure. I don't let people know. I mean, I let you guys know, but you know, whatever. I'm not in the NFL space, so most of you guys don't even know the context of what I'm fucking saying with being a Dolphins fan.
That's true.
So. You can do that shit, but what are you expecting when you go to like the league subreddit and you're talking about like LCS actually like being good? I mean, historically, it's something that would be a rarity.
Just ignore him, fan that wrote that accountability post about Perkz. Just ignore him. We're making it out of groups.
That was one of my favorite posts ever. That was so good.
Yeah, that was a great one.
All right. Well, those are some of your brain dead takes. If you guys have more for us, let us know in the comments below here on our YouTube video.
No, don't. They're going to intentionally troll us.
Yeah. It's fine.
Don't do that. Only post smart things.
All right.
Post what you think is smart.
Yeah, what you think is smart. Next up, we have ourselves. This is a segment that I like a lot just because it's hero building. It's a lot of what we want to, the underdog stories and the uncovering of new heroes before it happens. This is our dark horse player of the play-ins. And this is just the play-ins group, play-ins pool of players right now. There might be one in the main stage, but we'll get to that one in a later episode. So who will be this year's bin, as Dom likes to say? Which is the breakout star that could possibly be coming from these play-in teams? So Monty, let's start with you here. Who is your dark horse player that could have a breakout tournament?
So I guess mine. So even though I put this player under worrying trends because I do think they're better than their kind of garbage solo queue, US solo queue experience has been so far. They were one of the players with a smaller sample size. But I don't think this player is actually going to make it out of play-ins. But I think Arya is a player who probably can surprise again. I think we did see some good moments from Arya over the course of MSI, and I think now with a complete team with some international experience, I think Arya, this is a really good opportunity for Arya to do well, especially in this group where I think you can make an argument that Arya is maybe the best mid laner in this group overall. So even though I don't think Detonation, FocusMe, the LJL team is going to make it out, I think we're going to see more eyes on Arya at the end of this event. I got hyped up by Nymira, the LJL caster on Arya again. He's very good at doing that to me. Just hyping me the shit out of Detonation, FocusMe. So I'm hoping that we get to see some good best of ones from this team. And I think in terms of individual performance, this may be a tournament where other teams that are not LJL teams take a look at Arya like next year.
Again, Arya being boosted by, and all of Detonation FocusMe being boosted by Gang, the support.
Gang.
Is it Gang? It's not Gang.
Yeah, Gang. Yeah, who wasn't playing at MSI. So you guys could look forward. They had Kazu, their Japanese coach, was playing. Look, Cloud9 lost to a Japanese coach. That's all I'm going to say.
All right.
All right. Dom, go ahead. Who is your breakout star from this play-in pool of players?
So my breakout star is Ale. I think that Ale is actually really talented. He's one of the most talented top laners that we've seen in some time in terms of like new talents in LPL. I mean, Bin was last year. Ale kind of did the same thing in Summer Split here. And he has that really exciting champion pool that people would love to watch. He's a Camille player. If people try to pick Camille into him, he's got the Jax. He likes playing Viego top. He plays Gwen. I mean, his Gwen was like a little bit shaky, but he's essentially a carry top laner that plays a lot of these bruisers. And the way that he plays lanes is extremely aggressive, which is, I think, really interesting and really good in this group. I mean, when you look at his matchup in Group A, he's going to be playing against Morgan. We don't know if Morgan's going to be able to handle a player like Ale. And I became like,
he will not.
Really, yeah, pretty much. So I became like more interested in Ale once I saw him take down Bin in playoffs this time. So it was a game 5 situation. Camille was Bin's champion. If you're following the storylines, Camille was banned like 20 times in a row versus Bin or something ridiculous like that. It was pretty much, if you're playing against Bin, you ban Camille because he's just that good on that champion. Don't try to counter it or anything. They were banning it all series. Game 5, Ale picks Jax into the Camille and ends up essentially shitting on Bin. They win that game 5. They end up running the playoffs all the way to get to a 4th seed at Worlds, when most people have thought that LNG had fallen off and were going to lose first round. So I think Ale is actually really insanely talented, and people don't really know anything about him because people just don't watch LPL.
All right, well, Ale, obviously the top for LNG, has the opportunity to break out as goes with the theme of the 2021 Worlds.
I'm curious if we apply this, Dom, what your thoughts on LNG, because you've watched a lot more of them than I have. Just because, like, as you're saying, their playoff run was really pretty spectacular in terms of the teams they took down, which is like last year's world champion or world finalist in Suning, which has most of the same players. Like Top, obviously very hyped around Knight. Then they beat RNG, right? The reigning MSI champions, and they only lost to EDG and FPX, which were the finalists. So they had an unlikely run. But do you see LNG as like the biggest dark horse to actually win Worlds? Do you think they're capable of doing that?
I mean, I don't think that they'll win Worlds. I just don't think they have like strong enough mid and bot lane in terms of just pure laning to win the whole tournament, which is kind of what we saw versus like EDG, right? Like once you run into Scout and Viper and Mako, it becomes a whole different game of like, can Tarzan carry the world? But the thing is, they play like a really unique style where they have a lot of like priority around their jungle pick. So they'll do a lot of like Viego flexing top. And then the thing that I love about Tarzan, and the reason why I rate him so highly, is that he's so smart about the game, and he's so good at like picking out a champion that is not just like a counter matchup to the enemy jungler, but it's good against the whole enemy team. So we've seen him pull out Zac multiple times now, which is one of the picks that he uses when he sees immobile mid laner, immobile bot laner, and the jungle matchup isn't oppressive and he knows he can actually get through the jungle. He'll pull out that champion and just have like phenomenal games. We saw him pull out Nidalee. We saw him pull out Graves. And then he can play all the meta stuff on top of it. His Lee Sin looks really, really good. He's been doing well in solo queue. Like, as a player, I think Tarzan is just amazing. I just don't think that he's able to actually carry a lot of the games. I mean, when we watch, I think it was when did they get 3-0'd by FPX? I think they got 3-0'd by FPX. And when we watch like game 3 of that series, I mean, he had a great game 3. It was like him trying to carry the whole world. But eventually, when you play against such good players, like, your jungle difference actually can't carry through. And we normally never see a team that has like a kind of whack mid laner but a really good jungler win Worlds. That's never the recipe for success. It's always like the jungler has to be really good, but you also need the beast mid laner to actually be able to support the jungler and make it far. So I don't think LNG will win Worlds. I think they could get out of groups, and depending on their quarterfinal matchup, maybe they could make it to semis, but I think they would be like hard capped at semis.
That's fair. I was curious, not that I think they're the overwhelming favorite or anything like that, but if you think that they are the biggest dark horse of the tournament, like the outside team that could possibly have a chance to win.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like I'm not sure what qualifies as a dark horse, but it feels like right now everyone's talking about FPX, EDG, and Damwon. For me, I think RNG is like up there. RNG could easily win the tournament. So if I was going to say like team that people aren't really calling to win the tournament, I mean, I guess Cadril tweeted out that his girlfriend woke up in the middle of the night one day and said that RNG was going to win. So now that's his pick. But generally no one considers RNG. Yeah, no one really considers RNG to be a favorite of this tournament. And I think they're actually really, really strong. Like they're definitely a team that I think like should be at least in semifinals.
Got it.
Yeah, I think That makes sense. No one's really been talking about. Actually, I feel like people have been talking about RNG a lot more as a dark horse because everyone is expecting EDG, Damwon, and FPX as like the favorite. So I've heard more discussion about RNG, but you're right. They're on the outside looking in with a great shot to do it. For me, I think the dark horse player in our play-in stage that can up their value the most, and I think have an impact because he's playing against the tougher side of the bracket, I would say, with 1-2, with LNG, and with Hanwha Life, is Cody. Cody for Infinity Esports. This is a same LATAM roster that has been together for a while now. This is the same team that we saw go to MSI. Cody has been lauded by a bunch of players, including Doublelift, as like this dude is legitimate as a threat moving forward. And I think because this team has had the stability there in the roster and now it's kind of like the Detonation FocusMe type thing. You just need to win one. If you win one, you get one upset or even have one solid laning phase against either one of LNG or Hanwha Life. That ups your stock. So Cody, I think, has the opportunity to do that here for Infinity Esports. Those are our dark horse picks here for the play-in stage. All right, everyone, to close things out, we're going to start with the segment that I've been wanting to do for such a long time with people that could know the answers. It's dGon's Fact of the Week, sponsored by no one. Here we go. All right, trivia time. We all know we like this trivia. So Monty actually took mine that I was going to use this week, so I'll use next week's one and have to do some research. The one I was going to use is China, Korea, and Taiwan have the best representation of players, who was number 4. Monty already said, well, the Osh players outnumber the American players. So it's actually it's the Oceanic region has
good for you, Australia. You have 20 million people in your country. There are 3 times as many kangaroos, and yet there's still more of you at the World Championship than like 400 million NA people.
That's right. Than us. Yeah, 5 Australians, 5 Brazilians as well. Those were the 2 teams that were tied. But that one you could kind of surmise the Brazilian team is going to be comprised of all Brazilian teams. Okay, so my next trivia piece here is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players at 6 world appearances, but there is one player with the most world appearances with 7. Who is it?
I think
7 worlds appearances.
7 worlds appearances. I will give you a hint. It is 7 consecutive world appearances.
Must be from a minor region.
Is it Sword Art with TSM? No, it's not Sword Art. Okay, all right. Let me think.
You look at all the rosters here.
Yeah.
Who is it?
7 straight worlds.
Probably give that hint a little early, but 7 world appearances. It's the most at this year's World Championship.
Damn, I actually don't know.
Did we get him, guys? I think we might have got him.
Is it Deft?
No.
That is a good guess. Deft is that
Did he make
6.
it last year? Oh, he's at 7.
Yeah, he was out.
See, I might have guessed Deft as well, but it's the 7 straight that's really throwing me.
Yeah. I figured that hint would also kind of mess you up, but in the history of World Championship appearances, they're tied for 2nd with one other player and behind one other player.
Ooh.
I can't give those players because it'll make too much sense.
You can't give. Is it Jensen?
That is correct, Monty.
Yes,
Nothing
I did
gets
it.
by Monty.
Because through all the
fuck?
Team Liquid and Cloud9 appearances. Yeah,
That's
he's been at
correct.
Worlds
It was
every year.
4 straight Cloud9 appearances and then 3 straight Team Liquid appearances. He is tied with Sneaky, who made 7 straight on Cloud9, and obviously led by the greatest AD carry that North America's ever produced, Doublelift, who went 8 times.
Jensen has also made it further than any other player from the LCS at Worlds because he made it to semis. So
That's correct.
yeah,
That's correct.
struggled
So there you
with,
have
with
it.
the old getting out of groups on Team Liquid, but did okay on Cloud9.
I see one comment on this video that says 11 years, 1 semis. I'm gonna be mad. That's all I know.
Here are the other players that had 6. It was Core JJ with 6 straight.
Wait, let me guess.
Def-
Let me guess.
Okay, yeah.
Let's
Go ahead,
guess.
yeah.
I'm curious. So how many
hang on,
players are
there's
there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So
I
we
gave
know
you
it's Core
JJ
and Deft. We know
Core
it's
and
Core
Deft.
and Deft.
Yeah, there's 3
Uh,
more.
Let me see here. Let's see if we can guess. Maple, probably.
Maple is correct. 6. This is his first in the last 3 years. Did not make it in 2019 and 2020 because he was bottom feeding with the LPL, right?
Right. Faker.
Faker is correct. This is 6, his first as T1, not SKT1. Last player.
Is it Xiaohu, potentially?
It is not Xiaohu. Xiaohu's at 5.
Xiaohu's
Did
at
not go.
5. Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
LWX.
No,
It is not LWX.
I think he's only at like 2 or 3.
LWX is like at not a lot.
2.
okay.
2, I think.
Two.
Yeah, he's
really?
at 2. Here's your hint. It is 6 straight.
6 straight.
6 straight.
Now I'm even more confused.
Yeah.
I actually don't think I know this one.
All right, we'll cue the Jeopardy music here. You guys do know this one. I know it. I feel it. It's close.
Is it close?
Is it Zven?
That's a great guess. It's not Zven.
Sven missed it like
He
3
didn't,
years in a
he
row.
didn't go to Worlds last year, so I guess that's fair.
correct.
Yeah.
These are what,
Sven's-
5 maybe?
Oh, I
Sven's
know
at
who it is.
4.
I know who it is. It's Perkz.
There it is.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
It's Perkz. It's all
I
these.
can't
team swaps.
forget my boy. Jesus Christ. That would be too messed up. That'd be too messed
You
up
did.
if I didn't get him.
There it is. So there's my fact of the week, sponsored
I
by
like
no
that.
one.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We
was
will do
fun.
it again next week, and let us know if you got it right. All right, everyone. That's the first episode of The Jungle presented by Dexerto. We appreciate all of you tuning in. Hopefully we got you ready and raring to go for Worlds. Guys, any final words? Monty, you first.
I'm looking forward to being mad and shitting on players on this show after we actually see some gameplay. I actually think the show after play is going to be wild on this show. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah. Dom?
I'm just excited to see the comments take all of our arguments, turn them around, and then beat down the straw man that they've created. That's my guilty pleasure. So can't wait.
And then
All
we'll
right.
take those comments and turn them into straw men and beat on them. And
we have
the,
a-
the straw,
Yeah.
everybody will just have their own straw men. It'll be great.
Exactly. It's a
It'll be
never-ending
great.
content loop, and that's how we stay as content creators for eternity. So you guys are fucked. You're going to be listening to us for like the next 80 years or some shit. Well,
We'll be making
60,
each other
but-
mad forever.
Nice. Amazing.
All right, everyone. I'm going to go heat up some box mac and cheese. We'll see you next week for the next episode of The Jungle. See ya.